The Ten of Wands is known as oppression, and it can have somewhat differing meanings depending on what angle we look at it from. So over on the Rider-Waite deck, we can see that the Ten of Wands shows our figure struggling towards this town in the distance with their 10 wands. They appear to be very heavy and they're struggling with them, and one could almost say that they have taken on too much. They've taken on far too many wands to carry, and yet they are pushing on still towards their destination. On the Tree of Life, this card is interestingly in Malkuth, of which is Kingdom, and may appear to be the lowest emanation upon the Tree of Life, and yet it's also worth noting here that Malkuth contains within it the reflections, the illuminations of all of the Sephiroth above it. And so it's the physical world, which is of course that world of manifestation, of both good and bad manifestations in that regard. And so it's a grounded energy of matter and of earth, of visible world, of visible light, and it is receiving energy from all of the different paths. And most of the paths upon the Tree of Life form triangles, such as we've seen before, and Malkuth is the only one of which actually does not form part of a triangle. And of interest here, the Ten of Wands is the only 10 card in the Minor Arcana of which does not show a traceable outline of the Tree of Life upon it. Because it is Malkuth, it is separate from the rest of the Sephiroth joined together, and yet also connected to them, and so that's why the Ten of Wands does not show this actual diagram. So upon the card we can see a visible representation of oppression, and again it depends upon how we look at oppression in this state. And so the chief symbol upon here are the Dorjes, or the Purbers, of which we last saw on the Two of Wands Dominion. And here they are much larger than what they were in the Two of Wands. They appear to be these large bars, almost like prison bars, which really does represent oppression and being unable to get out of a situation you find yourself in. They are coloured in this dark, shadowy hue, of which represents Malkuth, the Kingdom Sephiroth, and also Saturn. And indeed we can see the sigil of Saturn as well as Sagittarius upon this card. Now this is an interesting one because Saturn in Sagittarius in astrology represents a person of whom is rather quite serious, and they don't let their hair down too much. Perhaps they should do. And the reason for that is that Sagittarius is all about ethics and empathy and higher wisdom and knowledge, where Saturn can be linked to delays and obstacles and that type of thing. And so it's saying we might want to achieve this higher wisdom and this morality, and yet there's going to be something in our way, and we have to work hard in order to get through these obstacles to make it happen. And so Saturn and Sagittarius people could be considered to be overly mature or for their age, or overly serious even in situations that might not appear to warrant it. And so we can see behind these Purbers. Now we're going to return to the Purbers in a moment because they have another rather interesting symbol upon them, but behind them are 8 wands, and these 8 wands are moving around, they're coming together, and they have upon them flames, and the flames are warped into different types of shapes. They appear almost like claws here upon them, and also they are barbed. This suggests that they are trying to latch onto something, they're trying to grab onto, make contact with the earth and put themselves into it so that they can manifest, and they are trying to get out of the situation that they are actually in. The fact that they have claws as well, it's not a particularly positive symbol. It's showing that the energy that they're putting out, scratching and clawing, it's not as perfected or as harmonious as what the wands were on some of the previous wands cards. These are a little bit more violent and caught in a struggle. And of course they would be like that in some way because they're trying to manifest all sorts of different things, and we have these bars in front of them oppressing them and stopping them from doing so. And that's why we can also see the flames behind the cards are certainly not travelling in any particular direction. They seem quite distorted, they're flying about all over the place. They are just manifesting or trying to manifest anything that they can, and they're struggling. They're not sure which way to go into. And of course, a fire in that type of behaviour in reality is a fire of which is in flux and could easily be extinguished, which of course is not the result that you want, because it would mean that these 8 wands, which could be the 8 of wands, swiftness, that powerful and very colourful energy of manifestation, or Hod upon the Tree of Life, glory, the manifestation of God's will into physical form, would actually be all thrown off balance and would not happen if the flame was to be extinguished. And so it's a little bit of a warning sign here. It's saying don't take on too much, don't bite off more than you can chew, so to speak, because you could actually end up losing what you have striven so far to actually gain. And the orange background here is rather similar to this. It's quite an interesting one, the orange background. It certainly appears to be in flame, and this is said to represent Geberah upon the Tree of Life, as well as something else more metaphysical referred to as Absoluth. And so here Geberah is about sorting things out and getting rid of the trash, so to speak. It's about cutting down on the things that we don't need, and it can be quite aggressive in its energy of getting rid of these things. And Absoluth is concerned with the 4 worlds upon the actual Tree of Life, and so this is something that we're not going to focus on too much in this series, but Absoluth is the highest of the 4 worlds and means the world of emanation. It's a world of pure divinity. It's associated with the name of God, and it's also associated with the suit of wands in the tarot, which is actually why it's been displayed here on the final of the numbered wands cards before we get onto the court. Put together, this means that we don't want the world of emanation to be full of overabundance. We don't want it to be full of all sorts of excessive abundance of things of which have no particular purpose, weighed down by status quo and oppression in that regard, which is all going to be quite negative emanations. And so we want the energy of Geberah, that might and strength, to come in and get rid of all these obsolete and no good energies, so that we can actually manifest the pure light. It's basically like giving your room a clean, and getting rid of all the rubbish, or imagining that we could manifest things by the click of a finger. We would manifest every single idle thought that we had, and some of them would be quite unpleasant, or we would get fed up with them and need to clear them out again straight after, creating a vicious cycle. And so it's quite an interesting one, that. And of course, that idea of cleaning up energy in order for the correct manifestation to occur brings us back to the Purbas in the centre of this actual card. And the Purbas, or the Dorjes, are concerned with the removal of obstacles. And there is a deity of which is shown holding these Purbas, and this is Vajrakalaya, of which is said to be the wrathful form of the Buddha Vajrasattva. And so this quite strange looking deity holding the Purbas crushes, removes and destroys obstacles, and more importantly transmutes them into something of more worth. And so this is in many regards what we're seeing here upon the actual card. Is quite interesting, for Vajrakalaya grants wishes and allows manifestation to occur, and yet also destroys ignorance and oppression and obstacles, which is what the Purba is all about. And so what we're seeing here on the card is that transmuted into this tarot symbology, that we have all of these wands, desires with claws and barbs trying to latch themselves into our experience, and some of them may be self-deceptions. They may be too much, they may be indifferent, and they may be painful experiences even. And so what it's suggesting is, well, we need to cut down on them. We don't want to be like the Rider-Waite character, of whom is carrying far too many wands towards their destination. We need to slim them down a bit. We need to understand our self-deception and our illusions for what they actually are, and remove them and transmute them so that the flames can actually extend in the correct directions and the manifestation can work for its highest good. And so drawing this card really depends upon what other cards come with it and what angle you are looking at it from. So it could mean that there really is something that you can't achieve, that no matter how much you try, it's not going to happen. And so we need to come to terms with that, and we need to redirect our attention into things of which are more worthwhile. And yet it can also represent oppression in another way. Perhaps we've taken on too much pressure, we've got too many tasks going, there may be somebody overbearing over the top of us or demanding person in our lives, and we need to in some way stop ourselves from being trapped, and we need to come to a realisation that this is creating bars, such as on the card, preventing us from living the lives of which we are attempting to create, because matter and form is just spirit manifested, and so if it's not channeled, it's not going to manifest. So we need to act like Vajrakilakalaya and cut through the obstacles, remove the obstacles, in order to free ourselves up, give ourselves a break, and finally get ourselves on track where we need to be.